Today's episode is brought to you by the Tax Defense Group. The team of professionals at the Tax Defense Group are passionate about helping taxpayers resolve their tax debt. Their services include basic tax preparation, tax audits, resolving large tax debt, and more. They actively represent taxpayers throughout the entire USA. If you need help resolving your tax issues, contact the Tax Defense Group. Call the Tax Defense Group today at 800-850-7973 to get started. That number again is 800-850-7973, and you can visit them online at thetaxdefensegroup.com. Are you thinking about starting a business or a side hustle? For all businesses to be successful, you need a website. Writer Junkie offers website development, content writing, and SEO services for business websites. Call Writer Junkie today at 805-587-7966, and you can visit them online at writerjunkie.com. We recently launched our website, ucaststudios.com. With articles about sports, special interest topics, and more, we have some cool stuff on our site. To read our content, please visit ucaststudios.com. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Lakers Outsiders weekly podcast brought to you by UCast Studios. I'm your host, Gary Kester, here with you as always. And joining me again today is Honi Ahmadian. Honi, big day for you. Your Raptors just narrowly avoided a 0-3 hole to the Celtics. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it feels good to finally get in the W column in the second round. I will give you my condolences as a Celtics fan. I know that you're hurting after that.
Excuse me, do you see where I'm sitting right now? For those of you that can't see this, I am sitting at Staples Center. I don't know why it's filled with fans and there's teams on the court. I thought the Lakers were in Orlando, so I'm a little concerned about Game 1 since the Lakers have to travel from LA to Orlando. I got to get this up on.
The best part of this is a bit that only you and I understand.
I was going to say, now I have to post this on YouTube or nobody's going to understand what the hell I'm talking about. So that's great.
I'm chilling with my pals Jonah and Kobe right now.
You got Meta chilling over your shoulder too. He's keeping an eye on you.
Yeah. Which is that DJ Banks back there? I can't tell.
Yeah.
My God. But yes, great night.
It is a great night. The Clippers are steamrolling the Nuggets, which I think we all kind of expected to happen. But the Raptors finally got on the board. But this is not a Raptors podcast. This is a Lakers podcast. We just enjoy talking about the Celtics' demise a little bit, especially when there's 0.5 seconds left and they're up by 2 and they give up a 3. So beautiful. But tomorrow, by the time we're recording this, probably today by the time you're listening, the big boys get going again. The Lakers are back in action against the Rockets. So we're going to preview that series today, kind of go over a couple different points, and then we're going to give you our series predictions at the end of this. And I just want to throw it out there that I am perfect on my predictions so far. I said Lakers in 5. Honi said Lakers in 6, so he gets like half a point for that first round series. A for effort, but B- for execution. So gave Portland a little too much credit there.
As I do in every walk of my life, I try to set the expectations lower than they should be. I'm just looking out for the people.
Hey, I'm just saying, a great man said tonight, I don't shoot to miss.
That's a good point. You win. You win this round.
Yes, nailed it. All right. As always, guys, before we dive into this, be sure to subscribe to Lakers Outsiders and UCast Studios on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, wherever. You can find Lakers Outsiders and UCast Studios there. And be sure to leave us reviews on those as well. That helps us out tremendously. We really appreciate that. With Lakers Outsiders, of course, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram, just at Lakers Outsiders. You can like us on Facebook, and, of course, get all of our content up on LakersOutsiders.com. You can follow Honi on Twitter at HONIAHM, and you can follow me at Gary Kester. All right, Lakers Rockets. Lakers, big underdogs again. Not really, but kind of, sort of. I feel like the mood has changed a little bit than really about 2 weeks ago. I think 2 weeks ago, everybody was saying, oh, the Lakers better hope the Rockets don't advance or they're in big trouble. What's your confidence level at right now going into the second round matchup with the Houston Rockets?
Yeah, well, again, I am the type of person to set expectations lower, but I am feeling a lot more confident than I thought I would. I don't know if that's because I've seen some wild takes on Twitter that are making me just really, really hopeful that the Lakers steamroll the Rockets. I don't think it's going to be an easy series by any means. I don't think it's going to be a sweep. I don't think it's going to be 5 games.
Lakers in 2.
Exactly. But I do feel pretty strongly that the Lakers have the much more reliable stars. If you're comparing LeBron to James Harden and you're comparing Anthony Davis to Russell Westbrook, I don't think it's much of a stretch to say that LeBron and AD are more reliable. There's always a chance that Harden goes off and has a better game than either of those two guys. There's a chance that Westbrook goes off like he did against the Lakers a few weeks ago. But I have more trust in the Lakers stars, and I have more trust in the way that they play for it to be just consistent. The Rockets are a team that, rightly or wrongly, they've kind of put all their chips on the table in this 3-point shooting tactic, and a lot of times that's going to lead to wins because they just shoot a ton more threes than the other team, and if they're hitting them, then they're going to win. They're going to have a massive advantage on that end of the floor. And if they're hitting threes and you're countering with hitting twos, then it's obviously an advantage for them. But it goes the other way where they have these long stretches where they can go cold, and they're not really a great shooting team as one that takes so many shots. I think they took 53-point attempts in 3 of the 7 games in the first round. They shot more than, I think, 44 in every single game. Your best shooter is Ben McLemore, who might not be able to stay on the floor because of his defense, although he's improved in that. And then after that, it's probably like PJ Tucker, as long as it's in the corners. They're not a great shooting team, and so to me, it's just having a little bit of confidence in the Lakers that regardless of what happens, you kind of know what they're going to produce. And as long as the Rockets don't go, just massive inferno from 3-point range in 4 games out of 7, I think the Lakers win. Legitimately, I think that the only way the Rockets win this series is that they win that 3-point battle by 20, 30 points in 4 games of a series.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we've really only seen this matchup one time. Because when they played in their seeding game in the bubble, LeBron didn't play. The Lakers just weren't at full strength, and obviously. This should be a very favorable matchup for LeBron because the Rockets just don't have any rim protection. Their center is PJ Tucker, who would be, the starting 2 guard for the Lakers, basically, if he were a starter for LA. But yeah, it's such a funky matchup, and I think that's why I've gone back and forth on this matchup. I don't know, but going into the seeding games, I kind of thought I wasn't as scared of Houston that a lot of Laker fans were, just because I know it's a funky matchup, but I just don't think they have anybody to stop LeBron and AD, and that's kind of what we said in the last series too. It's it's a matter of, can you shut down the two main guys for Portland, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously a little bit different here. The Rockets a little more emphasis on the 3, even though Portland was a 3-point heavy team. This is just such a weird matchup because Portland played with 2 traditional bigs, right? They started Nurkic and Whiteside, and the Rockets don't. They don't play with anything. It's 5 out all the time. They spread you out, and they either want layups or 3-pointers. There's no mid-range. With Portland, they'll take some mid-range stuff, Carmelo Anthony especially, but it's really funky, and I don't blame Laker fans at all for being a little concerned about it, just because it is so funky. I think on paper, Yeah, the Lakers should win this series, and I feel like they should win it fairly convincingly. But with the playoffs, man, especially with it's all about matchups. It's all about matchups. I think we're seeing that with the Raptors and Celtics. Like the Raptors, number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, and they just played great basketball all year. But for whatever reason, the Celtics just give them a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's what it's all about. Look at, I think it was '07, the year that the Warriors upset the Mavs, the 8 seed over the 1. The We Believe Warriors, which are now the We Believe Lakers. But it was just a bad matchup for the Mavs. The Mavs were so good that year, but for whatever reason, the Warriors just had their number. And they learned the hard way in the playoffs that translated over. It's tough with this because, like I said, we've only seen this matchup one time, really. And it was before really anybody, I think it was the Rockets' first game after they traded Capella.
Yeah.
And it was their first game that they played this 5-out style of basically just 5 perimeter guys and PJ Tucker playing center. And it was just weird. There's tape on it now. There's more of a blueprint on it, I think, which benefits the Lakers. And in that game, I mean, the Lakers lost 121-111. The Rockets shot the lights out in that game. Shot 50% overall from the field, 45% from 3, 19 of 42. The Lakers shot pretty poorly, 9 of 31 from the 3-point line. And it was a struggle. I mean, the Lakers had many opportunities in that game to go win it and just didn't. And Russell Westbrook played just incredible basketball in that game. He had 41, 8, and 5. So, based on what we saw in the regular season, it's tough to really draw any conclusions for those reasons because we've only had the one matchup, and it was the first game since. Both teams, I think, are very different now. I think the Lakers showed in that Portland series that they can play some extremely efficient basketball on both ends of the floor. And the Rockets really struggled in their series. I don't know whether to read into that or not. Like I said, it could just be a matchup thing. We don't really know. But given those first-round performances, where we saw the Lakers kind of come out and stumble in that first game and then just reel off 4 straight and look dominant in a couple of those games, matched with Houston going 7, which they looked pretty dominant in some of those games as well. But, I mean, they were a point away, or was it 2?
Yeah, I think it was 2 technically.
Yeah, 2. 2 points away from going to overtime in that game 7. A 3 wins it at the end there for the Thunder. So given the first round performances of both teams, did that sway your opinion of this series in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. I like I said, I was a lot more worried about the Rockets, just in the sense of how explosive their offense can be, how much they gave the Lakers kind of troubles in that game that you mentioned, and their defense, is legitimately a strength of the team, and I think their defense might actually be more of a reliable weapon for them than their offense is, just because they seem to bring it on the defensive end more often than offensively, where they might go cold. But yeah, I don't think they look very convincing against OKC, and like you said, the 3 out of the 4 games that they won basically in blowouts. The games that they lost were all close. I don't know how much you can take away from that. Maybe you can have some conversations about how they perform in the clutch. And I think those are fair. I don't think Harden really was great. Other than Game 7, he was pretty amazing in the last few minutes of that game. But in the 3 games that they did lose to OKC, I don't think he was great down the stretch. Westbrook is a guy who will either carry you or kill you. And so I left the second round not being totally convinced by their play. That said, I do still think they're legitimately very dangerous, and I think I made the point after the first two games when they won and they looked like they were on the verge of sweeping the Thunder. I very privately had the thought that they might be more of a danger to the Lakers making the finals than the Clippers would be. I don't think I believe that anymore. And then on the other hand, the Lakers came into the playoffs not really playing great ball in the bubble, and struggled in that first game, obviously, and then they really picked it up. And I think a couple of things from the Lakers play really make me a lot more confident. One, they got their shooting back. Danny Green and KCP especially looked a lot better. I think if Kyle Kuzma also kind of gets the shooting back to where he was in the bubble before the playoffs, and hopefully if role players like Alex Caruso, who I think is going to be really important because I think the Rockets might be willing to kind of lay off of him and let him shoot. If those guys knock down their shots, that's huge. And I'm a lot more confident that they will be able to after the first round than I was before it. And then the other thing, I was really happy with how they adjusted to using Anthony Davis. And I think AD might be the biggest key in this series. Like you said, he's being guarded by PJ Tucker. He's got like a half a foot on that guy. But Tucker also, I think, out of anybody who guarded AD for a big number of possessions this season, I think he was by far the best defender. And part of that is because the Lakers really settled for those post-ups. And we've been kind of hammering on it forever that when AD's got a smaller guy on him, you don't really want him posting up because he doesn't move those guys on the block very well. Their center of gravity is low to the floor. They don't get moved much. And Tucker is just like a big boxy dude. Like, you're not going to move him. Sure, you can shoot over him, but as great as AD shot in the first round, I don't really want to rely on that. He was also one of the worst jump shooters in the league the entire season, so I don't want that to be the Lakers' main source of offense. So I think based on how they played in the last 4 games against the Blazers, where they got AD the ball on the move with space going towards the rim, that makes me really confident that he'll be able to kind of take advantage of that matchup. Because if he gets to the rim, then yeah, PJ Tucker's not going to be able to do anything other than foul him, and he's a great foul shooter, so who cares? It's just a matter of actually getting into those positions, making sure you get a good shot, making sure you don't get the ball stolen from you by a smaller guy that's going to be able to pester your dribble. And Tucker is just a really aggressive dude. We know refs tend to kind of give smaller guys the benefit of the doubt when they're guarding bigger guys. So all of those things are a factor. And to me, it's, putting Anthony Davis in positions to succeed on offense is just absolutely huge in this series. And I feel a lot more confident in the Lakers' ability to be able to do that than I did going into the first round.
Yeah, no, you brought up a good point that I think we've talked about on here before. That the Lakers, you just can't dump the ball down to AD in the post just because the team's smaller. I mean, yeah, like if he has good position, yeah, like throw it down there to him, and if they send a double or whatever. I did like that Davis, I think it was today or maybe it was yesterday, acknowledged the fact that he kind of needs to go quicker to kind of go before those double teams can really hit him, and I think that's a great observation. I think that's something that we brought up, or maybe we just discussed it privately, but we've talked about that, just going quicker and not sitting there and waiting for a double team to show up, because that's when AD seems to get himself into some trouble. But I kind of noticed it more so in the seeding game, and this was, without LeBron, so I didn't really take much away. But one thing I kind of noticed was the Lakers are going to be better off, especially if they're going to play with 1 or 2 traditional big guys out there, if they really emphasize trying to get the ball up on the rim. Just get the ball up on the rim, whether it's, jump shots or ideally dribble penetration, because the Rockets are never going to have any rim protection out there. They're probably the best rim protector right now is Robert Covington, I would guess. Yeah. And that's just like, that's not his, like, he's not an Anthony Davis, like a guy, or JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard, a big guy that's going to really alter shots around the basket consistently. He can do it here and there if he's in the right position and whatnot. But dribble penetration, I think offensively is going to be huge. Not just dribble penetration, but guys, coming off of curls, cuts, whatever, just getting something going towards the basket, I think is going to be huge, because there were stretches in that seeding game that the Lakers were missing layups, but because they were getting the ball up on the rim, AD or Dwight or any of their bigs were getting the offensive rebounds and getting easy buckets. And I think that's how you really punish a smaller team, rather than just you say, here, we're going to dump it in the post and everybody just clear out. not typically good offense, not very efficient. So, keep running your offense. And I think that's where LeBron's really going to be able to be a huge help, is that he should be able to get to the basket early and often in this series. And even if he's missing layups or whatever, and he's drawing a second defender, there's going to be a lot of lob opportunities. There's going to be a lot of putback opportunities. And I just think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for LeBron to get easy buckets inside too. So, as long as the Lakers don't, look at it from a narrow point of view where it's like, all right, we're bigger than these guys, just dump in the post and we'll be fine, I think they'll be okay. As long as they don't just go strictly to that, I think they'll be okay. Just get the ball going towards the basket in different ways. And luckily, you might have the best player in the league for doing that in LeBron James. And I think that's going to open up a lot of different things for this team. If they can hit threes, it's only going to make things even better. Like if they're hitting threes and they can space the floor properly, the Rockets are going to have a hard time, I think, defending this Laker team, especially with LeBron on the floor. So it'll be interesting to watch to see what the approach is. I would imagine with the extra time off, the Lakers have been prepping for both teams, but I think most people expected the Rockets to be that second round matchup, although credit to the Thunder, man, they gave them everything that they could possibly handle. But this was the matchup we kind of all expected, and I would assume the Lakers have been prepping for this, and those couple extra days of their series going a seventh game could really help the Lakers in that regard. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Honi and I are going to talk about who we think the X factor in this series is going to be, and then we are going to give it another shot on our series predictions. We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by the Tax Defense Group. The team of professionals at the Tax Defense Group are passionate about helping taxpayers resolve their tax debt. Their services include basic tax preparation, tax audits, resolving large tax debt, and more. They actively represent taxpayers throughout the entire USA. If you need help resolving your tax issues, contact the Tax Defense Group. Call the Tax Defense Group today at 800-850-7973 to get started. That number again is 800-850-7973, and you can visit them online at thetaxdefensegroup.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Writer Junkie. Are you thinking about starting a business or a side hustle? For all businesses to be successful, you need a website. Writer Junkie offers website development, content writing, and SEO services for business websites. Call Writer Junkie today at 805-587-7966, and you can visit them online at writerjunkie.com. We recently launched our website, ucaststudios.com. With articles about sports, special interest topics, and more, we have some cool stuff on our site. To read our content, please visit ucaststudios.com. All right, so before we get out of here, we're going to talk about, like I said before the break, what we think the X factor is going to be in the series, what or who, and we'll give our series predictions, which I got one right in the last round, so I'm sure I'll get this one horribly, horribly wrong, but it'll be fun anyways. So, Honi, what do you think? Who kind of tops the list as your X factor for this series?
I thought of it in a few different ways, and I thought of a few different guys. I think Danny Green is a huge component of this to me, just because they need his shooting and they need his defense against James Harden. I think he would be the best option to guard Harden for most of the game, and need him to stay out of foul trouble. And if they're able to guard Harden without double teaming, then that's huge. I thought about Kyle Kuzma, who, like I said earlier, if he's hitting his shots and the defense that he's playing, then he becomes just such a crucial component of this team, and the Lakers become really, really difficult to guard if he's hitting those shots. But ultimately, I kind of went a little wayward, and I think, to me, a big X factor, maybe the biggest X factor, is Markieff Morris. And I think we kind of mentioned him in one of our earlier podcasts during the first round, and how impressed we were in how he played against the Blazers. He didn't put up crazy stats or anything. He barely scored. He didn't really rebound a whole lot. But just the way that he played, especially on the defensive end, to me was so impressive. And against this Rockets team, I'm expecting that the Lakers won't be able to really go to the well of having two bigs on the floor very often. Based on kind of some of the quotes that came out of practice, I think they're going to try it in game one, but my expectation is that it won't work very well and that they're going to have to switch that up. And Morris, I think, is somebody who could take that starting position from JaVale McGee, rather than a guy like Kyle Kuzma, who I know a lot of Lakers fans want starting based on his play recently. But I think Morris is a guy who plays his role extremely well. He doesn't need to take his shots. He's not going to ISO. He's just going to spread the floor. Offensively and defensively, he's kind of the perfect sort of player to guard the Rockets because he's sort of one of those lost tweener bigs where he can guard wings. He's sort of in between a wing and a big. And based on how the Lakers play, they love playing with bigs. Frank Vogel talked about wanting to make the Rockets adjust to them rather than adjusting the other way. And I think Morris is kind of a perfect balance point of that, where the Lakers can still play big with him. He's not a rim protector like McGee is, but he can still crash the boards. He can still get you extra possessions that way. And he can still be a big, a deterrent at the rim, even if he's not really blocking shots. But he also allows you to guard, the 5 wings that the Rockets basically throw out there. He can switch onto pretty much any guy that they have, and that's huge because then if you have him on the floor instead of JaVale or Dwight, then basically the Lakers can switch 1 through 5 against the Rockets, and that allows their defense to really compete through every possession. And then the other thing, just from an intangible aspect, the Lakers, to me, kind of lack those tough guy, old school dogs that we talk about. And I think Keith is just the perfect player to do that. And I think the Rockets have quite a few of those guys, and PJ Tucker and even Westbrook. And I think matching that intensity throughout an entire game, throughout an entire series, not that I don't expect the Lakers to come out and play hard, but it's just kind of a different sort of mentality. A guy who will muck it up. He'll stand up for his teammates, maybe get in a fight here and there, whatever. But I think that mentality.
Just here and there, though, not all the time.
Yeah, just a little bit as a treat. But it's silly, but at the same time, on playoff teams, I feel like every good playoff team has that sort of guy. And I think he being that enforcer for this team is huge. And he's a guy that, especially if he plays with some bench lineups as well, I think he can make sure that they kind of hold that mentality when, say, LeBron is off the floor, so that they're not really letting their foot off the gas. I don't know how much he's going to play, but my expectation is, based on how I think the Rockets will play this series, that Markieff is going to have a pretty big role.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I mean, we kind of noticed it, and I remember we talked about it after a couple games into his tenure as a Laker, after the Lakers acquired him. He just allows the Lakers to have so many different lineup combinations and just be really flexible and versatile on both ends of the floor. And I think this series is where you're going to see that. I mean, he was the guy I would have picked to be the X factor because of the things that you mentioned. I think not only his ability to switch different positions defensively, but also provide floor spacing for the Lakers and that toughness that he brings and all that stuff. I totally agree that Markieff Morris is going to be a very important part of this series. If the Lakers dominate with 2 bigs, great. But I'm expecting that they'll be better with just 1 big and kind of a stretch 4, which Lakers, like you said, Honi, they can still be big with Markieff out there. At the 4, you could theoretically have him at the 4, AD at the 5, or Dwight at the 5, LeBron at the 3, Kuzma at the 2. Danny Green at the 2. You can do all these different combinations because you have Markieff Morris out there. Just gives you a lot of different options, a lot of different kind of combinations that Vogel can play with, and I think it just makes the Lakers more versatile as a team. Just his presence out there and the skill set that he brings. Like we said, didn't put up monster numbers by any means in that Portland series, but you could tell that when he was on the floor, that it made a difference. It definitely made a difference both defensively and offensively. And I would expect the same in this series. I think he's going to be a big part. So I agree with you that he is going to be a big, big X factor in this series. Since you picked the guy I was going to pick, I'm not picking one player. I mean, you spoiled like 2/3 of them already. But to me, it's Danny Green, KCP, and Kyle Kuzma. To me, and it's more specifically their 3-point shooting. I trust all three of those guys to play defense, especially Kuzma now all of a sudden in the bubble has been really, really impressive defensively. KCP, I think, is going to do a pretty good job defensively. I think he's going to probably get some time guarding both Harden and Westbrook. I probably feel a little more confident with him guarding Westbrook than I do Harden, just because KCP with bigger, stronger players that he's guarding typically tend to kind of struggle. But that's also like bigger wings, like Kawhi Leonard, who's bigger than James Harden is. But I think those three, as long as they can hit their shots, man, because I think there's going to be a lot of open 3-point shots for those guys. And as long as we don't have a repeat of game 1 of the Portland series, I think this team is going to be just fine. I'm a lot more confident in this series than I was heading into the first round, just because the Lakers shooting sucked pretty much the entire seeding game, entire series or seeding games, the 8 seeding games. But their defense was good when it needed to be, and that's kind of how they got by. Game 1 rolls around, the shooting still sucked, and it was becoming a little worrisome. But then after that, they really turned it around. If they can continue that, and especially those three, Danny Green, Kyle Kuzma, and KCP, if they hit open threes, I think the Lakers are going to roll in this series, and I think it'll be over fairly quickly. I'll go out on a limb and say that. But yeah, if they don't hit threes, then it's going to be tough, because the Rockets are going to go on stretches where they hit threes. Like, this is like a classic D'Antoni team. And this, I always thought this with his teams, like going back to like the Phoenix days, is that as good as his teams have been, some of his teams have been really, really good. They'll put on a 10-0 run in the blink of an eye, but they're also very susceptible to giving you 12 straight points the other way. So if you're the Lakers, don't get frustrated if the Rockets hit 3 straight threes and put 9 points on you in under 55 seconds or whatever. You'll be all right. Like, there's going to be opportunities. We saw in the Thunder series, there were a number of times where I thought, oh man, here we go. The Rockets are going to run away with this one. And the Thunder would come storming back, because that's what a Mike D'Antoni team kind of typically does. So, and that comes down to 3-point shooting. You can't go 2 for 3 on these possessions. If you can match the Rockets' 3-point shooting even somewhat, I think the Lakers will be fine, because I think the Lakers will still get opportunities at the basket without any rim protection. I think AD and LeBron are going to get a lot of buckets inside the paint. So that's the X factor for me. I mean, we both agreed on Morris and the 3-point shooting of especially those 3 guys in particular, but obviously everybody. I just want the Lakers to shoot 100% from the 3-point line on 60 attempts per game, and we'll be okay.
I will go out on a limb and say that if the Lakers shoot 100% from 3 this series, that they have at least a 50% chance of advancing.
If the Lakers have one game where they go 100% from the 3-point line with over 10 attempts, I will buy everybody that comments on this video on YouTube a Popeye's chicken sandwich.
You heard it here, folks.
It's got to be 100%.
I'm going to be
minimum 10 attempts.
I'm going, as soon as this gets uploaded, I'm commenting first.
So yeah, Lakers, hit your threes, and you get to hurt my wallet a little bit. But I will be glad to buy some Popeye's chicken sandwiches. I will definitely buy one for me, because I'm going to comment on it too, just to say that I did. So, exactly. All right. Series prediction time. Cool. I got a full point for the first series. You got half a point for picking the right winner. Games, you were 1 game off. So I mean, we'll give you 0.75 points. I'm making up this point system as I go. What's your official series prediction for Lakers Rockets?
I'll say this. I came into the playoffs and into the first round expecting it to be a 7-game series. I'll now give the Lakers an extra game. I think it's Lakers in 6.
All right, we're gonna stick to the script from the first round. I'm gonna say Lakers in 5.
Woo, spicy.
I'll even be specific with the games that I think are won. I think the Lakers go up 2-0.
Okay.
Rockets win game 3. Lakers win the next 2 after that.
I'll go. I think the Lakers win game 1. And by the way, I wanted to make this point. I really hope they win game 1 because they really should. The Rockets just came off a 7-game series and have 1 day of rest in between. And the Lakers have been sitting and playing Madden for the last week. I really hope they win game 1.
Anthony, we're wondering, are you guys watching this series? Like, and then Anthony Davis is trying to get mini maps back on Call of Duty. So
he's tweeting about lobster bisque. I'll say Lakers win game 1, Rockets win game 2 just to get us a little nervous. Lakers win 3 and 4, Rockets win 5, and Lakers win 6.
All right. There you have it. Watch Lakers win in 7 now to prove us both wrong. At least we'd get the old half a point. Yeah.
According to
all right.
Lakers
in 5. Honi says Lakers in 6. We'll see. As long as it's Lakers at anything, I'll be totally fine. Would not be mad at Lakers at 4, by the way.
If they want to call it after 3 too, I mean, I'll take it.
I mean, Lakers just win 3 dominant games, blow them out, and the Rockets just say, screw this, and they just leave the bubble. Cool. I'll take that too.
If it's Lakers in 3, I'll buy all of our Twitter followers Popeye's chicken sandwiches. All 15,000 of them. All
right. Well, if the Lakers go up 3-0, I'm going to call the bubble hotline, the snitch line, and tell them that all the Rockets players were outside the bubble getting chicken wings. All right, that's going to do it for us this time. Thank you guys so much for listening. I will be gone for the first 2 games. I will be out of town. Still be watching the games, but I just won't be able to record these podcasts. So Honi will be kind of taking over the ship. So Honi, I expect a 2-0 series lead when I come back. If not, we have to have a serious discussion, my friend.
I'm getting us the sponsorship in these 2 podcasts.
You're just going to say Popeye's chicken sandwich for 40 minutes straight. Oh, by the way, Lakers win game 1. Popeye's chicken sandwich. But yeah, no. So that's what's coming up. But we're gonna as always, we're gonna have coverage for you guys up on LakersOutsiders.com. So be sure you follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at LakersOutsiders, and like us on Facebook as well. Yeah, follow Honi on Twitter at HONIAHM. Follow me at Gary Kester. And, of course, you can subscribe to Lakers Outsiders and UCast Studios on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be there. So it feels like it's been a while since the Lakers have really played, and I'm excited for tomorrow's game. I'm really actually amped for this series. I was a little bit nervous for the Portland series. I don't know why, but I'm more excited for this one. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, so we'll have to see. But
I'm excited, but as soon as the first James Harden snapping his head back foul gets called, I'm going to be furious.
I'm going to throw my phone across the room.
We have to watch at least 4 games of James Harden grifting the refs, and I'm not looking forward to that aspect. But the rest of it should be fun.
Whenever we get a Scott Foster game, just know that both fan bases are going to be united in our hatred for Scott Foster. That man knows how to bring people together. It's not a great way, but he gets it done. So,
the life of the party.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. But until next time, this is Gary Kester with Honi Ahmadian and the Lakers Outsiders, signing off.
Shout out Von Wafer.